So Ashley has an amazing career. She started out working for Senator Tom Daschle on health policy years ago. What's not in the notes that I had that I just found out is she was the vice principal of a school in Harlem several years ago. That got her exposure to some of the health inequities that we all experience. It was just talked about a little bit. She then decided to go to business school, a Princeton degree, of course. Now, let's go to Harvard Business School, so not too shabby, by the way. Coming out of business school, you could have gone in investment banking, you could have gone to McKinsey, et cetera. I said, no, I want to go into drug development. I want to go help find cures for things like breast cancer. So she went into the medicines industry and has worked her way up over the years with Genentech. She's been at Genentech over 20 years, Genentech and Roche, over 20 years now. Spent several years here in increasing leadership positions. She got an opportunity with Roche to go to Singapore and then to Switzerland, all with her family. So I love to learn more about, and I'm sure you all love to learn more about how that worked out with the family and how you managed that, so impressive nonetheless. And then she got the opportunity to come back here and has, as of January, been named the CEO of Genentech. So with that, I would like to welcome Ashley to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Is yours working?
No. Hi, everyone. There it is. Oh, it's so nice to look out and see everybody. It's a really wonderful view from up here.
It is lovely. So I guess just sort of warming up, obviously you've had quite a career. What has been the most galvanizing experience throughout the course of your career? If you could just maybe name a few.
Yeah, well, there have been many. I guess I'll orient to, first and foremost, it's always about our personal experiences that start us off on a path. And my personal experience is I've actually never known life without cancer in it. And that's because when I was 3 years old, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was not yet in her 40s. She was solidly in her mid-30s. And so I always had this very intense view of cancer. It could come back at any time. It could disrupt our family. Now, she had the benefit of having good access to quality care. She also took a lot of innovative treatments, innovative for the time, and she ended up surviving for many, many years, and that was fantastic. But then it was no surprise to me that when I would be a young mother myself, I would show up on the doors of Genentech asking for a job, because I really wanted to work on how we could bring, at that time, many new innovative treatments out for breast cancer patients, for lung cancer patients, and blood cancer patients. And I got that opportunity to do that. But then 4 years into that experience at Genentech was when, unfortunately, my mom's cancer came back. And I knew a lot more about cancer at that point than I had as a 3-year-old. And I got right on the plane with my 2 little kids in tow and left my husband to continue to do his residency here at Oakland at Highland Hospital because he was in the middle of his training. And went back to be a caregiver. And I have to say, again, she had great access to healthcare, but watching the patient journey was atrocious. I mean, just like the testing, the uncertainty, the going through all of that. And so all of that brings me forward to kind of today, which is, while I've always had a passion for healthcare and access to innovative therapies, I have such a sense of urgency now, more than ever, to be able to kind of think about all those patients and their families out there who just are not getting the care that they could and getting the benefits of living a lot longer. And now as I kind of come back to the US after having had some time apart, I'm shocked also by how we're the kind of source of innovation in so many areas, and yet so many patients, even in the Bay Area, are being left behind. And that's why I think it's so critical that what we do as a company is not only focus on our innovative science and continuing to innovate there, but innovate as well on how we get our medicines to the people who need them most.
Wow. I didn't know about your mother, but thank you for sharing. So thinking about you, Genentech, you've been here there quite a while now. What has changed and what is the same?
Yeah, so when I started at Genentech, it was before we were bought by Roche, the Swiss company, which we're a member of now. And, you know, I think what's not changed is we continue to really focus on innovation. How can we pioneer? How can we take big risks on our science and so forth? Not just try to discover the same medicine that's already out there for patients, but really, truly break through. And we talk a lot about following the science and rewriting medical textbooks. And that's who we are. It's who we're going to continue to be. I think we've also felt deeply around being patient-centric and then giving back to our local community as well. And so we do a lot with South San Francisco. We do a lot to support students going into the STEM fields, as well as you know, people at San Francisco State University. We support a multi-year grant there as well to hopefully have more diverse scientists and doctors as well come out of the graduate programs. And so I think that those long-standing commitments remain, and you know, a lot of the programs I can point to are 30 years old, right, for us. I think what's changed, though, underneath being part of a global organization is just being able to access more across borders and across countries. So we're able to do clinical studies that not only enroll patients in the US, but enroll patients in China, in the Ukraine. Unfortunately, that right now has been very difficult. But we think a lot more globally around the science that we can bring forward. And I think that's actually a really nice aspect of going from this kind of centered innovation entrepreneurial group in the US to one that can have a real global impact.
Excellent. I actually just learned about the STEM program over lunch, so that you actually bring students in from South San Francisco and they learn on campus. So that's really admirable.
Yeah, so we have a program called Future Lab, and that's in real close partnership with the South San Francisco Unified School District. And it's about bringing STEM education to the district, but then also, since we're right there, and we have so many scientists, they want to donate some of their time and volunteer their time as well. So those kids get to come and work and do experiments as well. And that just brings it to life. Hopefully we excite them so that they pursue it. But we were getting so much sort of success and positive feedback from that, we decided we needed to do more, and that's when we moved into more of the higher education fields as well, and the work we do with San Francisco State University. I think in San Francisco State University we've touched maybe 500 people with that program, and we hope that they will ultimately end up coming and being into our postdoc program and working for us.
Excellent. And they're in the back of the room now. So the recruit.
Right, it's a recruiting show.
So Genentech is, and I know Genentech has always been a leader in promoting, you know, diversity, female leadership, et cetera. Having said that, you're the first female CEO of Genentech. It's kind of hard to believe, but congratulations, that's great.
Thank you.
What advice might you have for other Bay Area companies as they seek to, you know, on their journey of, you know, female sponsorship?
Yeah, so our story, and actually there's a really good, if you're ever interested in it, Harvard Business Review article about it that talks about the 10-year journey we undertook around women in leadership at the company. But essentially, the genesis started back in 2007, and our then CEO, Art Levinson, was looking around the table, basically, and he said, gosh, we just don't have women at this table. And he said, and we don't even have women in the next level, and the next level down, like we don't have a strong, robust pipeline. And he said, in that meeting, but then he also said it broadly out to everybody. He said, this is going to hold us back from being an innovative company. You know, and it wasn't, yes, I mean, there's equity and values, and it's the right thing to do. You can use all those arguments. But I thought what was really powerful about his argument is this is a business imperative for us, because we are about innovation. If we don't have women at the table, we're not going to get the benefits of that innovation. And so soon after that, and I was in that cohort where they pulled a bunch of us together from across the enterprise. They put us in a room and they said, okay, you guys, what do you want? Like, what do you want to do to change the company? And by the way, they said, this is not going to be supported by, this is not going to be sponsored or under HR. This is going to be you guys figuring out how to change the organization. And that started us down a path of building a really strong women's group on campus. We brought in lots of external speakers to do a women's leadership summit, such as this, every year. We started to realize, though, that we were all in a room together talking to each other, and the men weren't there. And so we was like, okay, next Women's Leadership Summit, bring your male boss. Like, get them in the room, right? And then, we started to get a little bit even more strategic. It was like, well, we don't think that senior leader is as supportive as they could be. You know what? They're going to be a keynote address at the next Women's Leadership Summit. Because they don't convince them. They'll convince themselves that this is really important if they have to stand up in front of thousands of people and talk about why they are committed to it. It worked like a charm. And over that whole period of time, we both, worked on the women, which I do think is an important part, meaning like the confidence, the community of support to be able to kind of go to a buddy and say, like, I'm thinking about this way. What do you think? And have someone kind of really help you push through that barrier you might be imposing for yourself. And then we also actively changed the organization, the policies. How were we recruiting? How were we putting language in recruiting notices? Was that somehow gender biased or not? We took a very data-driven approach to and constantly looked at our own data to figure out how many women were joining, how many women were leaving, where were they leaving, why were they leaving, exit interviews, data. And the big point here is, it took a long-term commitment, support from the top, data-driven, and multi-pronged strategy. And now we're at the point where we're, many years into that, we're 52% women directors and vice presidents for the entire employee population. And I can tell you across all parts of the employee pipeline, it's extremely balanced that we have equal representation of women and men. And our executive committee, not only just at Genentech, but also at the Roche level, are 50% gender equal as well. So last but not least, sorry, you asked me like something I really care about. But last but not least is we learned how to do that. We learned how to do it really well. And it then made us say, okay, great. Well, we succeeded there. We have to do the same thing with underrepresented people in leadership positions. And so that then, a couple of years ago, really sparked us to make the same bold commitments to representation and leadership for people of color that right now are not fully represented. And we're, I think, well on our way to making a great progress there as well.
Great. Congratulations. That's great. A funny anecdote, my 14-year-old daughter went to a girls' STEM camp this summer. And at the end of the camp, they did a debrief, and they asked, what are your reactions to the camp? And my daughter, in front of a room full of people like this, said, it's great not to have the boys there because they weren't disrupting the class the whole time. Anyway, so maybe a little bit more back to business. So you're the CEO of Genentech now. Tell us where you want to take the company. Where do you see things going?
Yeah, I think there are two big kind of focus areas that I have. Again, it's really this sense of urgency around making sure all appropriate patients, clinically appropriate patients, can get onto our therapy, and bringing forward the same innovative spirit that we have in our science to making sure that's exactly how we're showing up around the country to be able to get all patients onto our treatment. You mentioned as well my background in public policy, and I spend a lot of time at the federal and state with policymakers to help sort of shine a light on where the healthcare system is working for patients and where it's just fundamentally not. And I think Genentech, we have a view that you can both, or all three goals can be met, which is lowering medical prices, drug prices, lowering government spend, and preserving the incentives for scientific innovation that is incredibly important in this U.S. ecosystem. And so getting out on the road, talking to the policymakers, talking about where we're just letting patients unfortunately fall through the cracks and what policy changes are needed is another big area of focus. And then the third is just one that's very internally focused, making sure that we are just a great place to work and that our employees feel like they're included, that they belong, and that they have all the support and tools that they need to tackle just the world's most complex healthcare challenges.
Great, thank you. You hit on it a little bit, but thinking about public-private partnerships in nonprofits and organizations, even like this one, but others, can you talk a little bit about what Genentech's doing with some of those partnerships in the community? We hit it up on it a little bit already, but
yeah. So we want to be kind of at the table, but we realize we can't be the entire table, right? That it's going to take a lot of partnership at the national level and then also at the local level. A couple of years ago, we reoriented our people who work out across the country. And we said, okay, rather than being oriented and organized against a certain disease area or therapeutic area, maybe you really should just be oriented to your local healthcare ecosystem. And so we took the US and we divided it by 30 different, are we good here? Yeah? Okay.
No earthquake.
Okay, I got the thumbs up, we're good.
Who's got the Dramamine?
Right, exactly.
We got a drug company. You got some Dramamine, right?
No Dramamine. So organizing by these local healthcare ecosystems has allowed us to really understand who are the local patient advocacy organizations, what are the local initiatives that are going on that we can join forces. And I'll give you just a few examples. Like as I've told you, we're really committed to health equity, and we've formed these national partnerships with American Cancer Society and with the American Diabetes Association. But we kind of agree at the national level what we want to work on together, but then everything gets executed at the local level. And we're always looking for those partnerships where we can line up both nationally in terms of values and objectives, but make sure that the partnerships can be done in the local communities where they can make the most difference.
Great, thank you. Maybe shifting gears back toward sort of women in promoting gender diversity. Let's talk about mentorship. How has mentorship helped you in your career, and what advice would you have to the group here around mentorship?
So raise your hand if you have a mentor. Okay, everybody's hand needs to go up next time. Raise your hand if you have a sponsor. And do you guys know the difference between the two? Okay, so mentors are there to help you sort of, I always think of them like be your sounding board, right? Sponsors are the people that are going to be in the room when you're not in the room, advocating for you to get that stretch assignment and to get that role. And so you really need to be working on developing both in your life. The role for me of mentorship what I've largely done is, worked hopefully very well with my manager, and then use them as my mentors going forward, right? Because these are people that know me really well. They know what my strengths are. They know my development areas are. They can be kind of good counselors as I face, new challenges, new choices in my career. But equally, it's important to think about which sponsors you need as well. And that can be harder to develop, but equally necessary. And so one of the ways to think about sponsors is literally to sort of ask somebody, I really admire, your career, how you've, gone about it. I'd really like to learn from you. I know you're not going to see my work necessarily directly, but I really would like to be able to kind of come and share with you, every few months what's going on, and I'd like to be able to sort of have that visibility with you and so forth. And, it might be awkward, but over time you can really develop and cultivate these relationships that can be enormously helpful and supportive. And then continue, again, to go back to them when you face a new sort of crossroads, because they'll form and be the basis of so much great advice. The other point, though, and maybe you guys have this as well, but think about, just your personal support network, right? And it has been my husband who every single time, and there have been some dark years of, 3 little babies and a commute over the Bay Bridge and a husband in residency where, I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot do this one more day. This is just too difficult. And how often he would say, I support you, I'll be there, whatever you decide, but I think you can get up tomorrow and do it again. And I'm there for you. And making sure you have those people around you as well, because, life is not always going to be easy, it's not always going to be straightforward, but you need those personal relationships as well that can support you through it.
Great, thank you. Maybe one last question. We have our 20 San Francisco State students in the back. Thank you for coming. Maybe a round of applause for them.